Okay, welcome to another edition of the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast. He is the legendino they call Tim Vickery in Rio.
And he is the hardest working man in show business, Mr. Give it up for Dotun, Adebayo.
I feel good. Ba, 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 ba,
I was
ba,
feeling
ba, ba.
better before you started singing.
You said I was the hardest working man in showbiz, and I confused it for a moment with the other bloke, godfather of what's its name. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about today, and we go with the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast every week looking at a classic football match. And believe me, the one we're talking about today was a cracker. There was some football and there was some brilliant football in it. But arguably, it was a game of other factors, perhaps non-footballing factors, Tim.
Yeah, well, this one, we're going back 10 long, hard winters to celebrate the arse letting slip a four goal lead, which is something that I always think should be celebrated. But it's
come on, man.
I have to declare an interest.
But we've got gooners listening to the podcast, man. You can't stick the boot into them. We haven't even started.
They know the spirit in which it is said. I went and stood on the North Bank on the last Saturday game that the Arse played there. I saw Anders Limpar score from the halfway line. I've paid my dues. I lived in Highbury during the long hot summer of '89. It was an entire summer of them in the Highbury barn going, Arsenal, let me get some revenge.
I think we get it, Tim. I think we get it. Yeah, well done you. And this arguably was a game of three arses because Arsene Wenger was there and
an arse of three cheeks.
You are so rude. Anyway, we've got a great guest with us.
Yeah, we have indeed. I'm really looking forward to this. He's not a broken stone. He is Ian Stone,
a comedian. Hello, Ian. So you're gonna have to tell us a joke.
Really? Yes, is that how we
yes.
start? I bought a German fridge yesterday in under 3 minutes. Bosh. Is that the sort of nonsense you're looking for?
That's above and beyond the Call of Duty.
I actually did that in Brent Cross Shopping Centre, having bought a German fridge, and I noticed people laughing, and my kids were looking at me going, "Dad, really?" But I love that joke. Nice to be here, guys. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. You're a broadcaster, comedian, and also, perhaps more importantly for the podcast, you're a gooner. Welcome to the program.
I am indeed a gooner. And by the way, I've been showing you one book I've got. I've got another book here. This is the Arsene Wenger, My Life in Red and White. Yes, I've only got to his rural life in Alsace at the moment. So I'm not getting a lot of dirt on Martin Keown as yet, but we'll see where we go,
Of course, he still lives something of a rural life up the road from me in Totteridge, which is kind of like when you get there, you think you are in rural London, as it were. And he's a good bloke. My missus bumped into him in the local supermarket. Well, not local, she tends to shop in the more posher sides of this little area. And she's bumped into him and he's, conceded to having a selfie with her, and he was looking as if he actually was enjoying it rather than he had been ambushed somewhere in a supermarket going about his business. And he got ambushed up in St James's Park, which is what we're going to be talking about very soon.
Man. I can't believe you got me on to talk about. I mean, Arsenal played so many great games, and this one we were 4-0 up against Newcastle, and then we blew it. And I got a call from the producer, from Mark, saying, "Do you want to come on the show and talk about this game?" And I think, I'd rather eat my own leg. And he said, no, seriously, it'll be fun. I thought, okay. So yeah, I do remember that game. Of course I do.
One of the amazing things for me, I've been away since '94. And the transformation of Arsenal in that time, in the whole ethos of the club, it's remarkable. I mean, the club that I remember, and I vividly remember going to the FA Cup semi-final in 1991, and it was an exercise in sociology in terms of the difference between Tottenham fans and the difference between Arsenal fans.
Yeah,
there are kind of sociologically a little bit different, but also in like football in terms, the Arsenal fans are going to the stadium singing about their fullbacks. Nigel Winterburn, Nigel Winterburn, singing about their for crying out loud. Yes. But that's what Arsenal were, and that was
they were hard to beat.
Yeah, and that kind of sense of reliability, that's what an Arsenal chap was, that kind of sense of, and then Arsene comes in, and there's obviously the perfect blend between the old Arsenal, the parsimonious, is that how you say it, defense, yes. and he brings in a lot of flair as well, and they were fantastic for a while.
When we won the league in 1998 and we beat Everton 4-0 on the last day of the season, the last goal, I don't know if you remember this, Steve Bold chipped it forward to Tony Adams, who chested it down and then left foot half volleyed it into the bottom corner, and that was 4-0, and we won the title. And what I remember most about that day at Highbury was everyone laughed. Everyone just started laughing because we thought, this is not how we remember Arsenal, not from one centre-half to another. And then he left foot volleys it into the bottom corner. And Arsene Wenger did that. He did. And we loved him for it. Of course we did.
I was at the stadium just a few months before this game. I was back in September and I went to the Emirates. The Emirates, is that way? See, with this business of this naming rights and so on, I think if they want us to pronounce it properly, they've got to pay us on an individual basis. Right. So until they do, it is the Emirates. But anyway, I was there for the game against Braga in the Champions League.
Yes,
and the quality, I think it was 6-1 to Arsenal. The quality was just sensational. And Fabregas was just pulling all this. I was watching a genius. And it was just at the moment when Jack Wilshere was exploding as well as the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yes.
But you could even see, even against Braga, that defensively, it wasn't the old days of the Arsenal back four. No. How have you all of you lot managed this transition from being the Arsenal of Willie Young to the Arsenal of that can let slip a 4-goal lead at Newcastle?
Willie Young. It's so funny to hear about Willie Young. I mean, he was hardly, a defensive solidity embodied, was he? But how have we managed? Well, we've managed because certainly for the first 10, 15 years of Arsene Wenger's reign, we had the best attacking football we've ever seen in our lives. I mean, we had a team which had Patrick Vieira, Robert Pires, Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp, 4 players, and Ashley Cole, actually, 5 players who I believe would walk into any team in the world at pretty much any time. And so we adapted quite nicely, really. We thought we'll take a little bit of defensive for the attacking talent that we had. And hey, it was a glorious bit of fun for a while. It really was.
Growing up in North London, and I was on the wrong side of the road to be a Gooner. Growing up there, I remember Arsenal being a very hard team, a really hard team, and the fans were hard, and the pitch was hard.
Do you remember Peter Story? Do you remember Peter Story?
I remember Peter Story. Yeah. Midfielder, was he midfielder?
Yeah. If you remember him, that means he must have kicked you at some point in his life.
Midfield enforcer was Peter Story. No, we did have a tough team. John Radford, who was a Yorkshire-born centre forward, he would decide on whether we had short sleeves or long sleeves. So if he went, all right, lads, short sleeves today, and everyone go, but it's freezing out there, John. No, it's not freezing at all. I can't do the Yorkshire accent. And out they go. So they were a tough team.
But they also had flair. They did have flair. Remember when you lot bought Alan Ball for a record fee at the time?
I remember David Price. I don't remember a lot of flair there.
All right.
Well, that's different, yeah. I was trying to keep it on the sort of intellectual level, but you feel free to bring it down. You are enjoying this a bit too much, Tim. You are enjoying the pain that we're going to inflict upon Ian in the next few minutes. You're enjoying it a little bit too much.
Tim, who do you support, by the way? Yeah, all right.
Don't worry. So we're talking about this amazing match. In my view, it was a cracker of a match. I did enjoy seeing it. So it was 2011. It was at St James's Park up north. You've just mentioned, how hard they are up north, Ian. So it's going to be a hard game, don't you? It's going to be a hard game. And in the middle of all of this, Arsenal go 1-0 up. Okay, at that point, I imagine you're thinking the glory times, because they go 1-0 up within about 2 minutes or
It's
so.
like 40 seconds or something.
Was it Theo Walcott?
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah,
Theo Walcott scored the goal. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, you have to understand by 2011, Arsenal going 1-0 up was no guarantee that we wouldn't blow it at some point. I mean, maybe 20 years before you go, right, we've won the game. Not this team. But you thought, well, hey, it's a good start. I'll take that. I can't imagine us holding on for 92 minutes, but yeah, fine. 1-0 in 40 seconds. Lovely.
When you're 3-0 up after 10 minutes.
I was only really happy at 5. I'll be honest with you.
That was wise of you to be happy at 5.
If I'm totally honest, even a 3-0 lead never felt comfortable. Certainly not in late Wenger years. It really didn't. We're a very, very flaky team.
So
why did it change so
February.
much?
Why did it change?
Yeah, why? Because are we concluding here that he inherited a defence?
No.
And couldn't replace that defence?
No, he did replace that defence. I mean, let's be fair. The Invincibles were all his defenders. Right. Ashley Cole, Lauren, Kolo Touré, Sol Campbell, and the Mad German Jens Lehmann were all his. They were all his.
I don't think you can really claim Sol Campbell as anyone but ours, frankly. But all right, we'll let that one slide.
Here we go. No, but the point was he could build a defence. No, the theory goes that he was seduced by the way that Barcelona players, the way that Barcelona played. So he just loved little technical players. You know, when the original team that he got, and he brought in Patrick Vieira and Thierry Henry and Dennis, they were big guys.
Yeah.
They were big guys. But by the time he got to 2006, 2007, Arshavin came in and Fabregas, a lovely footballer, but, only a little fella. They didn't have they weren't a very big team. And teams used to sometimes, I remember we played Chelsea once, and I can't remember the exact stats, but I think they were about 2 stone heavier and about 3 inches taller on average than our team.
And that's Chelsea. You know, Chelsea, a team of small guys, or they were once upon a time. We
used to sing "Hi ho, it's off to work we go" when we used to run out. So yeah, we were a smaller team then. And I think we started to get rolled over. Teams realised, managers like Tony Pulis get in their faces and all that nonsense. And I think that's what started to happen, really.
Yeah. So we're talking about Saturday, the 5th of February, 2011 at St. James's Park, Arsenal versus Newcastle. Do you remember what was in the music charts at the time, Ian? Because there's some joy for you. And there's some pain as well. The pain is going to be brought on by Adele, if that's all right. You don't mind?
I don't mind a bit of Adele. Quite like.
Yeah, because she's at the top of her game at this point.
Yeah.
And she's going to have you rolling in the deep. But let's save that for just a moment or two, whilst we talk about what's at number 23 in the charts at the time. Tiny Temper and Kelly Rowland. And the title of the track is Invincible. That was your anthem, wasn't it? Before the end of this match.
Do you know, I met Tiny Temper once. He was smaller than I imagined. That's what I thought. I said, hello. He goes, I'm Tiny Temper. And I went, oh, hello. Nice to meet you. But he was a little fella. Seemed all right. I don't know the song. I'll be honest with you. I don't know the song.
Don't worry about that. I was just like trying to make you feel good because
thank you.
When you are away, playing away, when you're a fan and you're at an away fixture and you get the first goal within a minute, you got to celebrate. And there's a lot to celebrate with in the charts at the moment. I'm going to give you a choice. You can either start celebrating with Grenade by Bruno Mars. Do you remember that one? I got a grenade for you. Do you remember that one?
No, but thank you. You love not the singing, way I sing it. You love singing, Dotun. I mean, every time I turn you on the radio, you're singing. Pretty much.
Good point. Well made.
But anyway, what's the other tune? I might recognise that.
Well, Do It Like a Dude, Jessie J, and she's at the top of her game at this point as well. You know, she's the ka-ching woman. You know.
Oh, I love the bling bling bling. That one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll choose her because I like Bruno Mars as well. I don't really mind either of them, to be honest with you. But let's go with Jessie J. Shall we?
She's at number 6 in the chart. So let's do it like a dude. Let's do it like Well, first of all, and it wasn't a bad goal, actually, the first goal, the first Arsenal goal. There you have Theo Walcott playing like a centre forward, and that was always the sort of debate about him. Where should he really play? He wants to always play as a centre forward. He gets a pass through, and he gets the opportunity to play it like a centre forward, and he does the job. It wasn't a bad goal. The second, arguably, is even better. The second goal, which comes from a free kick from Arshavin. And he delivers one of the, everybody's going on about Diablo's header, but actually you look at what's happened before that. The goal from the free kick from Arshavin is point perfect.
Oh, he's a great player. He was a great player. I remember him playing for Zenit, wasn't it? He was a star at Zenit St. Petersburg. And we thought he is a quality player. And the trouble was, he was never really played in position by Arsene Wenger. I mean, listen, we all hold him dear for the goal he scored against Barcelona when we beat them 2-1. Just an absolutely fantastic, one of the best things I've ever seen in a football stadium. But he was a bit moody. Essentially, and I think it's because he wasn't being played where he liked to be, which is in number 10, because we had 14 number 10s at the time.
Of course, yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky. It's like was it Keith Richards said of the Beatles in comparison to the Rolling Stones, them lot were lucky because they had 4 lead singers, whereas we only had 1. Sounded like, sour grapes to me, by the way. Do you remember what was, because Tim, you were away at this time, but do you have any idea what we were doing this weekend? It was bank holiday.
It was around carnival time over here, so I'm going to have to plead that I was otherwise engaged.
Yeah. I imagine that gets in the way of most other things. Are you watching Arsenal Newcastle? No, there's 400,000 semi-naked dancing women outside the window.
I do beg your pardon. It wasn't a bank holiday. I've just checked up. No, it wasn't a bank holiday. So I apologise. I was trying to be clever there. Too clever by half, clearly. Do you remember, Ian, at all what was the talking points of the day? I'll give you a couple of clues. What do they used to call it? The Arab Spring was about to meet its most crucial point.
Really?
Its biggest success. Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't all about what was going on at St. James's Park. There were other parts of the world also doing their thing at the time, you might remember. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sensing that. I'm sorry, I didn't realise I should have done some homework.
No,
the Arab Spring, the most important part of the Arab Spring, well, it could be argued it was the Tunisian person in the market, wasn't it? But,
absolutely right. That was what kicked it all off. That was what kicked it all. Its biggest success, arguably, though, was the unseating of President Mubarak, wasn't it, in Egypt? Although, having said that...
That worked out well, didn't it?
Yeah, I didn't want to say. I couldn't possibly say.
Yeah.
Feel free. But we were dealing with much more issues closer to home. The leader of the Conservative Party was William Hague. Do you remember him?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's Cameron. Cameron is Prime Minister by this stage.
Oh my goodness, this is a senior moment. You're absolutely right.
Cameron has won the election in the May of the year before, and this is I think a vital moment because the New Labour hubris thing has broken. The financial crisis has happened. And that Cameron with this Clegg thing come through, and they're like Thatcherites who've learned to smile. They're Thatcherites who've learned to do PR, and they've kidded people that they don't really believe that Thatcher was a golden age, but they do. So what happens now is the scandal that you lot over there are still living. They've spent a fortune of government money to bail out everyone who's caused the financial crisis, to bail out the financial sector. And then they decide to make that up. They're going to cut public spending and cut public spending and cut public spending. And Cameron tries to pull this one off with the biggest load of bollocks I've ever heard, called the Great Society. David Cameron's Great Society. That means we're going to cut state spending and people out there are going to do it all for themselves.
It was called the Big Society, but we've forgotten as well. Don't worry.
But it's just a huge, huge lie, which ends up with the country being unprepared for the coronavirus, and also stepping over beggars every time and homeless people every time you go home. I remember being back at this time, and I've got a mate who's married to a Dutch girl, and they've lived in England for a while, and just this austerity thing is really coming in. If people want to learn more about this, the Scottish political economist Mark Blythe, he writes really well on this austerity, the history of a dangerous idea. And this Dutch woman, she's a real Anglophile. When I used to visit them in Holland, and she'd be watching BBC Two in Amsterdam, watching the Darch. The Darch, it is the Darch.
Come on, Tim, that's terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, so she turned to me and said, "Bad times, good music." And unfortunately, looking down this, what was big at the time, it's not true, is it? And there are some interesting things there. There's some female emancipation. The Jessie J thing you're talking about is an anthem of, do it like a dude. Yeah. Female and Kesha, who's number one. Well, it's garbage, but it's an anthem of young adolescent girls going out together. That's great. But apart from that, there doesn't seem to be a lot around where it's people using the medium of music to think through or to react in some way to the issues of their lives.
Yeah, and but political tunes.
That makes it so different from the music, Ian, that we grew up with when, the hard times are really coming in, late 70s. And music was like our school. You didn't go to school to be educated. You went to school to jump through the hoops you had to jump through. But if you wanted an education, you listened to the popular music that was around.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, as I said to you, that I've written a book about the Jam. Paul Weller was really, he opened my eyes to a lot of that sort of politics. I hadn't really thought about that stuff before. And he's singing about police brutality and social unrest and social injustice. And I'd never really thought about those things before I heard Paul Weller sing about them. He wasn't the only one. The Clash were doing it as well. Police and thieves on the street and stuff like that. But Weller was a big influence. And yes, music was more political back then, I would say. There isn't a lot of political music now. There wasn't in 2011, as far as I know. No,
it doesn't have to be like political with a big P. It's just something that deals with. There's one standout thing from this top 10, I think, which is the Wretch 32 Tractor.
Wretch 32, come on, I've told you that before.
Sorry, yeah. I've been away a long time.
And he's from Tottenham. He's from Tottenham. He's your homeboy.
But that's done with real wit. But it is a depiction of someone whose life is out of control. He's got a daughter on the way, and he hasn't got a job, and he's dealing with alcohol, and women are kind of blotting that whole thing out. But at least he is talking about his life or the life of people as they're being lived.
Do you think
it doesn't have to be like politics with a big P?
No, but do you think the urban scene is maybe more where it's at in terms of people talking about their lives rather than just the rock bands or what have you? I mean, if you think about now, grime is I would say that is political in the stuff that they're singing about, because Stormzy's singing about his life and about what's going on. That is as political as Paul Weller was doing in '78. I don't know if the charts is the best place to look for it, though. Perhaps.
From an existential point of view, even when the music scene suddenly looks on the surface as if it's apolitical and just about, ephemera, if you like, actually that is political in itself, because it's not by accident that all the artists suddenly start sounding like, Beyonce or whatever it might be, or all the artists start sounding like, I was going to say Adele, but really we should say Amy Winehouse sort of triggered off that movement with the, all the other female singers that came out of that, Duffy and that kind of thing. But it's not by accident. There are gatekeepers of the music industry, and to some level, those gatekeepers have dissipated, but ultimately, who's in control of what gets promoted on any particular platform? And there are times when the music industry decides let's get rid of the politics, in the same way that sport decides that sometimes. And then, of course, events overtake sport, and suddenly everybody's taking the knee. And the sports, anybody, any sort of official of the sports community who would turn and look at that as a political act, or say it openly, it is a political act, but say it openly, and say it negatively, they would get dismissed, because at the moment, it doesn't matter whether you think it's a political act or not. That's the way it's going to be. And sometimes music and artists get that control over the music industry when they get power, particularly. You know, Bob Dylan doesn't care if you think it's a political song and you don't want to publish political songs. The market and the supporters of his music are, exactly, they're more than the sand on the seashores. I was going to say, what I remember of Arsenal, a slightly earlier generation. I'm only a couple of years older than you, but every day counts as far as I'm concerned. So give me the due respect, etc., that you'd expect. Look, what I remember very much was going to, you know, the old Highbury and to the North Bank as well. I remember Arsenal fans having more style than Tottenham fans. Okay, well, no, I'm saying, okay, you can milk it, but I'm saying, no, genuinely, I remember, because I went to White Hart Lane mostly, and then I went to the North Bank with my mates from school, because I went to school in Arsenal territory, and I thought they were wearing all the sort of like Lacoste stuff, you know, the casual stuff, earlier than they were at Tottenham. In Tottenham, it was all kind of like flat caps and tabs for a while, the old school. And, you know, they wanted to win. It was like more serious than styling it out. Then I'd go to Highbury, go up the Blackstock Road, and everybody going out was like, you know, dressed really tastily. Plus also, musically, I thought they were ahead. In fact, a lot of what I would call sort of quote unquote underground black music at the time, I first heard going around with Arsenal fans, if not at Highbury itself. Yeah.
I mean, I think Arsenal had more black fans.
It did,
I would say, than
100%.
There's a bit more of that. I mean, it's not. Spurs had more Jewish fans, incidentally, and a lot of people used to say to me, "How comes you don't support Tottenham?"
There's lots of Jewish Arsenal fans as well.
There are loads of Jewish. There are loads of Jewish.
But they're
Arsenal
almost
fans.
Apologetic. Because I've had some on my programs as well. They're almost, oh yeah, look, I am Jewish, okay, but yeah, I'm a Gooner as well.
Well, I get the number of times people say to me, "How comes you're not a Tottenham fan?" And as I've said, if my dad had taken me to Tottenham when I was 7, that would have been tantamount to child abuse. So luckily, I feel for me, I got away. But listen, of course, I'm going to think that Arsenal are a bit more stylish than Spurs. I mean, possibly it's true. I like I say, I think there were more black fans at Arsenal, and actually more black players as well.
100%. 100%.
Are the two together? Did Arsenal? Because there was that time, kind of early 80s and so on, where suddenly there were lots of black players at Arsenal.
Yeah,
and not too many at Tottenham. Did that bring the fans, do you think, Dotun?
I think totally. I mean, I'll tell you my experience. The funny thing about football is that you can go to any ground, if they've got a couple of black players there that they're rooting for and they're chanting for and they're backing, suddenly, you know, you're like, oh, you know, here's my new black friend, you know, like you're there, the only black guy in the whole thing, and suddenly you're popular with them, or you're not as unpopular as you might otherwise be because you're black, and they, you know, they're like asking me, oh yeah, so do you know Clyde Best? Yeah, because you know he's black and all, you know, it's like that almost.
Yeah, of course. And, I mean, you can see that if you think about West Bromwich Albion, and I imagine a lot of black people really identified with Cyril Regis and Laurie Cunningham and Brendan Batson. The 3 Degrees. I mean, it's a shame about the manager, even though he did, you know, bring them into the team.
But it's a good point you make, because you're talking about Big Ron Atkinson and the amount of footballers, the amount of black footballers. They're in two camps. Either they completely despise him for his comments on Sky TV when he thought the mic was turned off,
which were abhorrent. Let's be
totally, and also unfair. Is the other thing they were?
Yeah, quite.
But I've heard a lot of black footballers, a lot of them. You know, this is. I won't mention any names because it might embarrass them. But right up, okay, I'll mention No, I won't mention it. It's slightly unfair to mention because they've said this to me sort of in private. And what they've said is that, look, don't forget, he gave a lot of work to black footballers.
Yeah.
And their insight into it is not the way that we look at it, that a manager just goes and buys somebody that he knows is the best player. In those days, it was kind of like, I am going to employ black players, even though the management or the chairman might not like it. I'm going to go and employ some black players because they're not getting gigs elsewhere. Yeah. And it's the same with managers to a certain extent. Some chairmen go out of their way to employ the likes of Sol Campbell, who is the bridge, I think, between you two gentlemen, isn't he?
Tim, I'll leave that with you. You can talk about that if you want.
Well, I can't. It hurt that one.
I can imagine it did.
But that one, because I used to go along and watch Tottenham reserves. And when he broke into the Tottenham team, first it was midfield, and then he was right back and left back, not both at the same time. And he even did centre forward, and he did them all right.
Yeah.
But when I went to the reserves, he was playing centre half, and I would say to everyone who would listen, "This is the future England centre back. That's how good That's how good this player is." So good luck to him and all that. But there's one part of this story that we haven't talked about yet at all, and that's Newcastle.
Yes.
And we're coming on to that.
I'm trying to avoid it, to be honest with you, because it was a grim afternoon.
Because the great thing about this story for me is that mentality of the Premier League. I'm not going to say English mentality, because so many of the players are from all over the world. But it's not all over when it's 4-0. And that's not just because it's Arsenal and they're flaky. No, they're still believing. Some of them have gone home. They've gone in home. There's one in the TV. There's one bloke. I
don't know where they're from, by the way, these people.
They're from Nigeria via Scotland.
When the third one goes in, there's a clip of a support, and you can see him saying, I think in Geordie, it's a fucking disgrace.
Oh, it's outstanding.
Fucking disgrace. Outstanding. And some of those who thought it was a fucking disgrace, I think they're winning.
I mean, a few people have left, haven't they? Left games. Noel Gallagher famously left the playoff, didn't he? When City were 2-0 down, and he left. And I believe George Best might have left the Nou Camp in 90, whatever it was, when United won the Champions League final. I think he left 5 minutes before the end. But
there's enough of them who stay, and there's enough of them who still believe. And it's a little bit like, that the Champions League that Liverpool won when they're 3-0 down at half-time to Milan.
Yeah.
I saw Arrigo Sacchi talk about this because he was at the game, and he was talking with Ancelotti, who was a Milan manager, and he was saying it was like a triumph for British sporting culture because they're 3-0 down at half-time, and they're still singing at half-time. There's still a joy there, and there's still a belief.
And irony, maybe, as well, at some point.
There's some of that.
Not in Newcastle so much, maybe.
No, but let's be fair. Part of the reason we love sport is the possibility that unbelievable things happen that you couldn't. If you wrote those things in drama, people would go, that's never going to happen. But Newcastle, even as you say, with the flaky Arsenal defence and the fact that Joey Barton cheated and got Abu Diaby sent off.
Well, I was coming on to that.
Go on, then. Let's talk about that.
I was trying to do it so that it would be a bit more balanced.
Let's just get on with it. Come on.
Okay. Well, let's leave the word cheated out of it then, because
right. Okay, let's not use cheating.
Well, no, you can use it, but I won't use it.
Right.
But he did use what they euphemistically call the dark arts, didn't he?
He did.
And I suspect, because this would have been an incredible game if Newcastle had turned it around against 11 men. So Diabo, who's already scored an impressive goal that we talked about earlier, he's obviously been getting a bit of jip from Joey Barton. Look, we know the form, mate. We know the form. Joey Barton is put on the pitch. He's got some skills, but he's one of those players that is also bought for offensive purposes. Let me put it that way. Sometimes, you have your Chopper Harrises who are there for a job and they've got to do their job, and it's going to cause mayhem amongst the opposition because they won't end up with 11 men, that kind of thing. And that's kind of Joey Barton's job in this, because the way that when Diabo pushes him, or he doesn't quite slap him, but just like shoves him away from his head downwards. it's almost kind of like, I don't give a shit. You've been going on at me for too long. Fuck off, kind of thing.
That is what happened, yeah.
And interestingly enough, Joey Barton, if you look at Joey Barton's reaction, given that Joey Barton, master of the dark arts, has still got a fiery temper, on this occasion, he's just holding it down. He's just like, ref, you can see I ain't done nothing, and look what's been done to me. And he gets sent off as a result of both the drama of the moment and a little bit of the acting of the moment, but also, I think, as a consequence of a repeated needling from Joe Barton. I don't think it was just that moment.
What was the score at the time? Was it 4-1 when he got sent off?
Wasn't it 4-0 at that point?
4-0.
Was it 4-0 at that time? Even then, by the way, even then with 10 men, you're 4-0 up. You should have enough. I mean, I understand that Newcastle, when the crowd get behind them, they make a hell of a noise, and you can, I wasn't there, but you can imagine. But also, I remember the referee giving them the most ridiculous penalty. I mean,
they got the two quite soft penalties, I think.
Yeah. So there was a lot that went against them. I can't imagine Arsene Wenger was very good. That was a very good company for the next few days.
But you didn't see it. I did not see it.
Yeah, it's possible you didn't see it. It's possible you didn't see it. You know, I made a joke actually about his book, saying it probably started quite well, tailed off badly in the middle, and then it was okay at the end again. That would be very suited to Arsene Wenger. But this team had a soft centre from the time that Patrick Vieira left in 2000, whatever it was, 5 or 6. We were not really the same team. You can never. I mean, we tried to replace him with Diaby, and Diaby could have been sort of that guy, but unfortunately got crocked at Wolves by this thug, and that was the end for him. He never quite recovered. But in that particular game, him getting sent off, I still don't think we should have let him 4 goals in the second half. But,
my surprise is that Arsenal couldn't keep the ball better. With Fabregas and Wiltshire. Because, the last few minutes...
Fabregas was getting shoved around, I don't know if you noticed. He was getting shoved around and the ref wasn't giving any free kicks.
He was a tough boy, though, Fabregas. I saw him get involved with Frank Lampard quite a few times. I don't think it was that. I think it's sort of interesting to see professional footballers, World Cup winners and all the rest of it, just sort of lose their bottle a little bit in that cauldron of noise that was St James's Park that day. And it was a cauldron of noise. I mean, I did... for some reason, watch the highlights later on because I don't think I could quite believe what had happened in the afternoon, and the noise coming out of St James's Park, and it does affect the players, and I think that's what happened.
Sorry, Tim, I cut you.
No. A wise man speaks because he has something to say. A fool speaks because he has to say something. Just momentarily. I'm not taking that
personally, by the way.
Momentarily, I was neither, so I kept quiet.
So we're talking about February 2011, incredible match. So we've talked about the 4 goals that Arsenal have scored. Let's talk about the goals that Newcastle scored there. You've already mentioned the 2 soft penalties. Yeah. Nevertheless, and I'm taking your lead and running with it, Ian. Nevertheless, even a man down and 2 penalties down, unfairly as they may have been, Arsenal should still not have lost that game. What happened then?
They didn't lose it.
Well, they lost the lead, certainly. But
Newcastle had a chance at the end. It could have been 5-4.
It could have been. But what happened then? Was it the defence then that collapsed, or was Arsenal trying to chase that game?
I think they lost their collective minds. I mean, like I say, if you look at the major events in that game, Joey Barton doing what he does and getting Abu Diaby sent off, 2 very, very soft penalties. I can't remember the name of the ref, but I can see him. I can see his face.
Was he a baldy?
No, he wasn't. He was a little round sort of bloke. I can't think of his name.
I get nervous when somebody says, I can't remember his name, but I can see his face.
Well,
if I ever come across that face again. No, good.
Not at all. But also, by the way, and we are leading to this. Chet Tiote, God rest him. That
was amazing.
That was even the thing about me. I am first and foremost a football romantic, right? This is the truth of it. And so, as much as I hated what happened that afternoon, and I did hate it with a passion, there's a bit of you that you see Chick Tiote's face when he scores a 30-yarder into the bottom corner with 5 minutes to go, and the place goes absolutely crazy. Of course they do, and you just think, man, I love football. I love it for that. For that, I could have done without it that afternoon, but you do like seeing it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm so glad that it's so great that the vital goal, the equaliser, is not a soft penalty or something scrambled in. You know, it's like a proper pick that one out goal.
Yeah, it was a great shot. It was a great shot, and turned out, you know, one of the only goals he scored for Newcastle, I believe. So,
yeah, I wish well, I'm sure Newcastle fans would have loved to have seen LL Cool J in the charts. You know, for that tune, when he says, "Mama says knock you out."
Great tune. I do know that tune.
Out. But it starts off with, "Don't call it a comeback."
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been here for years. That is a tune.
But it was a comeback. It's billed as perhaps the greatest comeback ever in Premier League history.
It's in Premier League history, perhaps, but not that I want to. This is not to wind Tim up. But Spurs were 3-0 up in a maybe an FA Cup game in the 3rd or 4th round at home to Manchester City, and Joey Barton, bless him, was in that game and got sent off at half time, and City won 4-3 with 4 goals in the second half. Now, obviously, I enjoyed that one more. But like I say, part of the reason I think we love football, love sport generally, is just you never know, do you? You absolutely never know. And I came on here because I thought, you know what? Yeah, I don't mind talking about it because it was a great moment in Premier League history. It really was.
As Tottenham fan, you kind of usually do know. You know.
Well, this is what we were like as Arsenal fans in the second half. Yeah, we're 2-0 up, but this is all going to go tits up. We just know it is because we're Arsenal and that's what we do.
It's great when you have the kind of rivalry that all three of us are familiar with, the Tottenham-Arsenal rivalry, and it does affect an entire neighbourhood because they're so close together, you know. From the moment you get to, well, after leaving Camden Town, going probably all the way up to Waltham Abbey or Enfield or something like that, you are either an Arsenal fan or a Tottenham fan.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's at now, because I mean, when we were kids, but when we were kids, more than anything else, it was a philosophical derby.
Oh, and geographical as well, but philosophical, yeah.
But for me, like a Newtown kid, it's not geographical; it's philosophical. It was, you know, how do you want to live your life, played out through Arsenal Tottenham, and I can't think of any other game that's like that. No, because there weren't, you know, the Jewish thing. But there are as many. I think there are as many Jewish Arsenal fans as there are Tottenham fans.
There probably are. So I don't understand what the different philosophies are. Then,
well,
really.
Back in the
beauty and awful disgustingness. Is that what we're? Sorry, I couldn't think of anything better to say there. But you know what I mean. I was.
Yeah. Can I refer you to the previous comment about the wise man and the fool?
Oh right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm stopping now.
We were. There was a little bit of fake sophistication about us always. We were pushing it to trying to be fake sophisticated. We would buy in. It had to be glamour. Whereas the Arsenal, they bought Clive Allen, and after a striker, and after 5 minutes, they swapped him for Kenny Sansom, a left back, and that's what Arsenal were. They were
pragmatic.
Yes, this isn't a criticism at all, but they were solid. You know, they were Donny Howe. That's what they were. And even that, you know, was it the marble halls or whatever at Highbury? There was a certain solidity about it. And so, but that's all gone. Arsene's changed all that, hasn't he? He's changed, and his body of work there was so sensational that he didn't just change the team, he's changed the whole essence of the club. So there must be Arsenal supporters now who've grown up thinking that is normal. Whereas for us, Willie Young and Peter Story are normal.
Yeah. I don't think he just changed the club. I think he changed football in this country, to be honest. I think the things that he brought in, not least the nutrition and all that, the stretching. I mean, I know Lee Dixon a little bit, and I speak to him, and he talks about the stretching that they used to do. I don't think they ever stretched before 1997. They just had a couple of fags and then on they went, you know. And it's
off down the golf course or the snooker hall. That's what training, you know.
Very different.
It was a couple of laps around the track and then go and get pissed in the afternoon. That's what training was.
You know what? We can't deny it, can we, Dotun? It's true. That's exactly what it was. But it seemed to work for a while. It did seem to work. I remember Ray Parlour talking about being on a pre-season tour in 1997. And he said all the English players were sat at one table drinking heavily, and all the French players were sat at another table smoking heavily. And he thought, how the hell are we going to do anything? And we won the double. And he said it was Arsene Wenger, and there's no doubt that he was a genius for a while. And he remade our club, and we love him for it. You know, the ending didn't go as well as we would have liked. But
that was horrible.
It was horrible, but you know.
I think he brought a philosophy to the club, and it's good that you make the comparison between then and before. The kind of Ray Parlour drinking it after the match kind of philosophy went out the window, and everybody seemed
after the match.
Yes, there were occasions when it happened before big games. It's true.
I was thinking half time there.
We did have a drinking culture. Our captain ended up in Chelmsford prison for 12 weeks.
But having said, and Tony Adams is the right person to bring up, because you saw the Arsene Wenger philosophy transform him. He started almost speaking like Jean-Paul Sartre, and I think it also transformed football journalism, because here you had a guy that not only was as good as you were in English, if not better, but also it was somebody that took the sort of discussion of the game to a higher level. Yeah. And you couldn't go back to your paper and start writing in the good old days, you know, oh, well, he hoofed it up the pitch, you know.
It's all about who wants it more.
Yeah. That's right. That one. That's what people used to say. Listen. I have total respect for Arsene Wenger and what he did, and we loved watching that team. I mean, loved watching that team. Of course
I do as well. I've got total respect for him. I think football's all the better for his presence in the game.
Yeah.
But you Gooners, you have a good laugh when the revolving door of coaches goes round and round and round in circles at the old White Hart Lane, and apparently at the new ground as well. You have a good laugh. I remember Gooners loving the fact that Christian Gross, when he came for his tenure as manager of Tottenham and he was being interviewed, he showed that he had a return ticket, a return tube ticket to Heathrow Airport.
Tim's not laughing as much. You notice this? He's not enjoying this bit at all.
Well, it could be worse. You could mention George Graham.
What, the only manager to win you a trophy in the last 15 years?
Oh, that hurt.
But anyway, we're not doing this. I didn't come on here for this sort of combativeness.
No. We came here for fun and games. And like I said, you know, when you've grown up with this, it is part of my DNA. It really is.
All of us.
Yeah, exactly. And I was thinking North London wise, you know, this Arsenal Tottenham thing, for want of a better phrase. Tim was asking earlier where the demarcation came. I remember on my side of the road, so I lived just off, what would it be? It would be just north of Seven Sisters Road, but by Manor House, sort of like Woodbury Down, but on the other side of it, just by Haringey Stadium.
That's close. That's
really close. Territory. Well, it's close to both, mate. It's closer. So my side of the road was all Tottenham. The other side of the road was all Arsenal. If I'd lived on the other side of the road, I'd be an Arsenal fan today, and I probably hate Tottenham as much as I am indifferent to Arsenal. But let's leave that to one side. It started changing though. I went overseas, so this would have been about 1987. I came back to North London. I had to slightly before that, about 84. I came back to North London with no money at all, so I had to go and live at my old man's gaff. It was then down by Lordship Lane, more towards Tottenham.
It's Tottenham, mate.
And I suddenly saw some kids walking on our road in Arsenal shirts, mate. You would never have seen that in the old days. You would never have seen that. Not that deep into Tottenham. I've seen it on Tottenham High Street. I remember I went to do some interview, some boxing club more or less across the road from the Tottenham Stadium. I saw some kids walking in Arsenal shirts. And the other day I saw some guy, and this is in Tottenham, with a big, huge, one of those huge FA Cup Arsenal flags hanging out of his, was it front garden? I think it was back garden, because it was like a side house. I was driving down along the side of the garden sort of thing. And I thought, when I grew up, that would never, ever have happened. I suppose, and I'm not into the tribalism at all, but I suppose Arsenal's, I've never seen the opposite. People walking in Tottenham shirts around Finsbury Park or Islington, this sort of Arsenal territory.
I don't think I have either.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose
tried
what's
it.
happened.
I tried it in '89, but no, cautiously.
Do you know what I love? I mean, it's funny you're not into the tribalism. I really like the tribalism. I mean, we talk about hate in Tottenham, and I remember Maurizio Pochettino, who's a manager I have a lot of time for, and I think Spurs made a mistake getting rid of him. But you know what, we'll see. But Pochettino used to talk about the Arsenal Tottenham game, and he used to say, he said, I like those games. It's about the right sort of hatred. And I thought, yeah, you get it. So you can scream abuse at people that you gladly sort of have a cup of tea with and go and have a dinner with. But for 90 minutes, you hate them. And that's how it should be. That is part of the fun. And I think that's personally, I know we're talking about Arsenal Newcastle, but I think that tribalism is what makes Tottenham Arsenal the best and most exciting football derby to watch in this country. You know, I think they're great games because both teams are a little bit flaky. And I like the atmosphere in those games, although I prefer it at the Emirates because it's safer for me. I'll be honest. Because the last time I went to Tottenham, it was dangerous. I mean, I was walking around and people are, there goes that Arsenal, you know what. And I had to take my glasses off and I couldn't see where I was going. I mean, it was a nightmare round there. But I do like that tribalism. Going to White Hart Lane on a night game in the 70s and 80s, the atmosphere crackled. You don't get the same thing now because you don't get quite as much tribalism and hatred as you used to.
What do you think of Arsenal fan TV?
I think it was an embarrassment in the last couple of years. I don't think it was for Arsenal fans. I think it was for fans of other teams just to laugh at,
have a good laugh,
troops and whatever the rest of these people are called. But it's not for me. It's definitely not for me. You know what? People like to sound off after games. Good luck to them, but I don't have to watch them.
Well, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure taking us down this road. Let's end it by just reflecting on this game, this 4-4 draw, this great comeback. Can we not just end it on I can tell you about my book? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. No, to be someone, tell us about it. Then we'll talk about the Arsenal game.
Yeah. It's a book about the stuff that we've been talking about growing up in the 70s in London and the music and the youth culture. And so it's part social history, part autobiography, and part love letter to Paul Weller and the Jam.
Oh, wicked.
And you know, hopefully it's funny. And Phil Jupitus has done some absolutely beautiful illustrations, which I'm sure that people would like. And I got a quote from Paul Weller on the front cover, which says,
"Flipping heck!
I really like this book. I'd forgotten how shit it was in the 70s. I mean, how funny is that? So I'm proud of it, you know, and I want people to read it. And I do talk about going to the Arsenal in there as well. Of course I do, but it's about growing up and, you know, from that age from say 13, 14 years old to when you're 19.
That was the days, mate. Those were the days.
Listen, there was a lot of low level violence and it was dangerous and all the rest of it.
Where were you living at that time?
I was living in West Hendon. I was brought up in Harlesden, which is pretty sort of out there, but I was living in West Hendon. But I was traveling around the country watching Arsenal and the Jam, and it was and other music as well, and it was tremendous fun. And I hope that people get a sense of that. And I don't think it really matters which band you particularly liked or which music you liked. I think it's just, you know, when you're 13, 14, a bit of music just hits you in the side of the head, and you're forever changed. I think, and that. For me, it was the Jam, but I think it could be anyone.
You know, happened to me at 13, down in the tube station at midnight. Changed my life.
True.
It's funny, you lot a couple of years younger than me, and it's so funny to hear you say this because obviously what happened to me a couple of years before you discovered the Jam was that punk licked my head off.
Huge.
And yeah, just a couple of years before. So when the Jam came out, and I remember when the Jam came out because I remember seeing a poster for them on Oxford Street. It would have been about early 78 or late 77, whatever it was. And that was for In the City, the first single. Yeah. And people had already started talking of them like as new wave because all of a sudden, you know, we'd come from the punk era where any band that named itself with the definitive article was essentially a punk band. And they came out and said the Jam, and they were dressed up in suits and they kind of combed their hair. They like loosened up their ties or whatever. And people started saying, well, you know, let's distinguish them from punk. Let's call them In the City. I went and bought the In the City single and I thought, yeah, just about passable. Just about, for me, coming from the punk tradition of the Clash and the Pistols and all of that. and it's just about passable. But then after that, I went and saw them live. I saw them live in probably what was their worst concert ever. And it was their worst concert ever because this was live at Gröna Lund in Stockholm in Sweden. It was a really stormy, rainy day.
Right.
So it's the fairground. It's an open air concert, fairground, probably about 30,000 people there or whatever it is. And they can clearly hear themselves in their monitors, but nothing's coming out of the speakers, just a little bit.
Not a great gig.
And that went on for about 20 or 30 minutes before they sorted it.
Oh,
yeah,
no
and I was pissed off at that, but I was slightly pissed off at them before because I thought they took punk and sort of like, you know, they used all the guitars of punk, but just kind of cleansed it up a little bit and, you know, put some harmonies in, and we didn't.
They weren't punks.
I know they weren't, but they rode off the back of the punk thing at the very end. Yeah, at the very end of the punk thing.
It's a mixture of punk and 1964.
That's true, because he was big influences with soul music and with The Who, of course. I mean, I remember when I went to see them the first time at the Music Machine in 1978.
I remember the Music Machine. I
love
there
that
a few
venue.
times.
I love that venue.
Well, it's closed down now, you know.
Well, everywhere it's closed down at the moment, but it was on fire, wasn't it? But yeah. But I remember seeing them, and before they came on, they used to play all these old soul classics, and they played "Land of a Thousand Dances," Wilson Pickett.
Yeah.
And then the lights went down, and then John Weller walks on and went, "Please welcome the best band in the world."
Oh, wow.
And it was they came on big roar, and I'm 10 foot from the stage, and they played "It's Too Bad," and it was honestly, it was the best moment of my life up to that point. I mean,
wicked,
it just
man.
knocked my socks off, and I'm not saying that's when I decided to write the book.
I want a book. I want a book.
That's
I've got to come over and get the book now. I don't know when I'm going to come over, but I've got to come over and buy the book.
But
Music Machine. Do you remember? Was this at the time when the stage was like 20 foot up in the air? Do you remember that?
Yeah, it was quite high up. It
was like about 20 foot. Because I remember the Slits playing there. We were a little bit naughty in those days. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's leave it. Let's leave it at that. Oh, by the way, just on a final anecdote on Paul Weller, I used to see Paul Weller every single weekday morning. You know, every single weekday morning, because his daughter, and probably his youngest one, went to the same school as my two daughters. So I used to drop them off of like weekday
this
morning.
Depresses me. Why can't they fucking walk? That's what we did, and that's what made us into who we are today. Fucking walk.
Yeah, you can if you live within 5 miles of the school. In Africa, it's a good point. I remember in Ghana seeing these little kids running to school, and they're like, I was driving along going towards the big dam in Ghana from Accra, and there's little kids running through, like, not the forest, but it was like grassland or whatever, running by the roadside and really looking forward to getting to school. Do you know how far up it was before we got to their school?
Yeah.
It was about 15 minutes down the road by car. And you could do that in Africa. You can't do that in where I live anyway. You might be able to do that in Rio. Anyway, the point I was trying to make was every morning I'd see this cool guy looking like a rocker. And oh, by the way, in the same school was Noel Gallagher had his little daughter at that school as well. By the way, I'm not in their league, just to very quickly say. I'm not in their
They're
league.
on a podcast right now going, do you know who our kids used to go to school with? Dotun Adebayo used to turn up.
They never acknowledge me.
He used to drop his daughter off and sing his songs.
Well, Paul Weller always came out in your obligatory jean jacket, Levi's jean jacket.
He wears it well, though, doesn't he?
He does, actually.
I interviewed
a little old-fashioned, but that's all right.
Very good.
I interviewed him for a magazine, a style magazine. This is a man who loves his clothes, and is happy to talk about outfits he had 35, 40 years ago that, incidentally, he can still get into, which is quite impressive.
That's the trick. And so can Tim. That old jacket of yours, you can still get into it, can't you? The whitish kind of jacket, Tim.
I don't know which jacket. I've got a kind of ice cream jacket.
Yeah,
I've got one of them.
It's the one that your mate from the Middle East gave you, and then years later asked you, "Yeah, but can you still get into that jacket that I gave you?"
Oh no, that's a pinstripe suit that he nicked for me. I don't know if there's statute of limitations on this. It all has to do. I'm not going to go that far down this road, but it all has to do with the the Israeli-Palestinian crisis. But he owed
Don't
me
get
some
me
money.
started.
Yeah, he owed me some money, and one day he turned up with this lovely double-breasted suit from the place that he was temporarily employed at, and not employed at for very much longer.
No.
And I still have it to this day. That's 1991. That suit.
It's impressive, Dotun, isn't it? It's impressive getting into clothes.
It's not bad. It's not bad. I wish I can get into the ones that I bought a couple of weeks ago. It's been a real pleasure, Ian.
Didn't we have a nice time?
Oh, we did.
Wasn't it such a fine time?
You can get hold of the book. You can get hold of the book. I mean, it's in Waterstones and on Amazon and all the rest of it, independent bookshops. It's out and about. It's out there. It's called To Be Someone. And yeah, I mean, when I gig, which is not very often at the moment because of COVID, but when I gig, I tend to bring some along and sell them, sign them for people. But yeah, it's out there in bookshops. And
do you realise now you should have stuck to your guns?
Yes, I did. Undoubtedly, I shit out to be one of the bastard sons.
I suspected. Myself. See, that's when you went to hybrid. There's the problem. We've identified the problem.
You know what's interesting? I do remember all those lyrics. I must have sung those songs so many times, and I hope that love comes out in this book. I hope it does.
I'm sure it will. Man of the match for you at the 4-4.
Newcastle. Really? Joey Barton. Joey Barton, man of the match. I mean, he had a pivotal role to play. God.